Assassinate Hitler? Don't mind if I do. Alex, can I get a quick intro, please? Hi players, bonjour from Geneva, my name is Asaf Hirsch and welcome to Board Game Co. For the upcoming project of Black Orchestra on GameFound, we have decided to do a how to play for this wonderful game. As always, if you appreciate the content or just like the explanation, feel free to check out the other content that I have on my channel Easy Board Games. A link will be added down below. Ready to see how it goes? Let's get to it. Alright guys, so as always I've skipped setup, but let's go over everything that we can see right now on the table, starting from top to bottom. So over here we have 7 event decks that are numbered between 1 and 7, and we're going to draw from these decks every time that we're going to finish the turn of one of the players. Just below it we have the main board, of course, and we have a few elements on the board. First of all, we have all these envelope tokens. Those are the item tokens that we'll be able to acquire during our gameplay. Also, we have here the 2 players, the blue and the yellow player, and basically this is going to be a how to play / playthrough for 1 or 2 players, which actually doesn't make a lot of difference because even in the solo mode you are going to play 2 conspirators. Both of them are going to start in the trade station right over here. On top of that, we're going to have a few tokens over here. One of them is Hitler, and the other tokens are some of his deputies like Göring or Himmler and so on. And while I'm talking about this, I think that I'm going to say Hitler so many times in this video that we're kind of going to get flagged. So, I don't know, NSA, FBI, whatever. If you're listening to this, this is just a board game. Chill. Moving on to the lower part of the board, we have here basically, I think 90% if not more of the information that we'll need in this game. At the left part we're going to have our turn phase, what we need to do in our turn. Also we have here a few explanations. To the right side we have Hitler's military support, and over here I'm not so sure you can see it with the camera, but we are going to play on the easy mode since I don't want to abuse myself too much playing a more difficult level. To the right side we're going to have the procedure of what is going to happen when we are going to attempt a plot against Hitler. We have here the victory card that hopefully off screen I'm going to have, but we'll see how it goes. To the left of the board we have 2 decks of cards. One of them is the conspirator deck. This is the deck that we're going to draw cards from every time that we're going to do the Dossier Action. Don't worry, we'll talk about it soon. And also we have here the interrogation deck. That is something that we're going to draw cards from if we are going to be situated in prison. More to the left of the board we can see the 2 conspirators play areas. That is again the blue player and the yellow player. I'm not going to try and pronounce those names. And on those player boards we can see that we have 2 cubes that are actually signifying the 2 elements that we have in this game. Sorry about that, it's supposed to be in medium. So the first factor that we have is the suspicion. That is basically how much the Nazi regime is suspicious of that specific conspirator. We are all going to start in the medium level. Also, the second factor is the motivation. We are going to start at the lowest motivation, that means timid, and we'll be able to advance with that marker into skeptical, motivated, committed, and reckless. Most of the time when we need to execute one of the plots that we have, we'll need to be at least in the committed level, and some of the plots are so crazy that we'll have to be actually reckless. Now, as we advance on the motivation track, we are going to unblock a special ability or a specific action that specific conspirator will be able to do. And also, we're going to start with a limit of only 2 dossier cards in our hands, but the moment that we're going to go to skeptical, we are going to enhance that limit up to 6 cards because we are going to play the solo or the 2 players version. To the left side we can see that we have place for 4 items, but the 4th place is again only if you're playing with 1 or 2 players. Also, each conspirator is going to have some sort of a title. For example, the general over here is a Wehrmacht, and the admiral over here is a Abwehr. I hope that I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm sorry if I'm not. And on top of that we have the dice over here that we're going to see how they come into effect during the game. Now, in general, in Black Orchestra, we are going to play some people that are part of the Nazi regime, but they are seeing all the atrocious things that Hitler is doing, and they are trying to assassinate him. So we are going to take turns each time another conspirator, and we have only one winning condition, that is if the assassination attempt is going to be successful. That is what we can see over here. And we have 3 ways to lose this game. The first one is if all the conspirators are going to find themselves into prison. The second one is if we need to draw an event card and we can't, that means that we also lost the game. It will happen only when we're going to go to the 7th deck of event cards that we have over here. And the third option is if we're going to draw a specific card from the 7th deck, and that is something that in the rulebook they allow us to take out from the game just to make it a little bit easier, but I didn't do it. I left it over here. In any case, we're not going to see it in this playthrough / how to play, so it's not so important, but just for you to know that this is another losing condition. In each conspirator turn, we can see it over here. We need to do 3 things. The first one is to check if that conspirator is in one of the spaces as Hitler or one of his deputies. That will have some sort of a negative effect that is written on those tokens. And then we're going to go to the action phase. We'll be able to do up to 3 actions that we're going to see obviously in just a few more moments. And the third thing that we need to do that I think you cannot see with the camera, but trust me, it's over there, is that we will need to draw one of the event cards and resolve it as we go. And with that, guys, I think that we're ready to start the first turn. I have, of course, randomly decided that the blue player is going to take the first turn. So let's see how it goes. So this token is supposed to be, of course, flipped to the other side, but it doesn't matter because we're going to see it right now. The first action that I would like to demonstrate is the move. Now, in general, at the beginning of the game, as I said, all the conspirators are going to start in the Berlin train station. And with the movement action, you'll be able to move to one adjacent location. Now, we have here different locations in Europe, but specifically we have Berlin over here. Now, the thing is that all the places, all the spaces that are with this B letter that signifies Berlin, of course, are adjacent to each other. So with one movement action, I can go from the train station to any location that I would like inside Berlin. If, for example, I'm finding myself over here and I would like to go out from Berlin, I will first of all need to make a movement to the train station, and only from the train station I will be able to move to a different location. Now comes in the second restriction, is that if you can see in each location we have a number. That number corresponds to the number of deck that we are using. So at the beginning, if we're just drawing cards from the first deck, we'll be able to move only to the locations that are with number 1. So that means that with one movement location, I will not be able to move over here to Prague, for example, because this is a location with number 3. Obviously, if we're going to draw cards, for example, from the 5th deck, then basically all the locations with the number 5 and lower than that are open to movement. On the other hand, some locations are with this number 7 and this cross symbol, and that means that in the 7th round, the last one, we will not have access to this location. So going back to the action phase, and I said that I want to demonstrate movement, we're going to have one movement from the train station of Berlin to over here to Hanover. Okay, so far pretty simple. The second action that I would like to demonstrate for you is the Conspire, which we'll be able to do only once per turn. So over here in this table, we can see what does it mean. Roll up to 3 dice, spending 1 action per die. So since we already spent 1 action to do this movement, now we can sacrifice up to 2 actions in order to roll 2 dice. So let's see how it goes. And we have basically here 3 symbols that we can have. The first one is this eagle symbol that we have right over here. And that actually means if we have this, we're going to raise the suspicion of all the conspirators that are situated in our location up by 1. For example, from medium to high or from high to extreme. And also if we're already in extreme and we need to take one more suspicion, we will not be able to do that, so we're just going to ignore this thing. The second thing that can happen is that we're going to roll one of these target marks. When that happens, we're going to take this die and move it over here to the descent track. Once we have 3 dice over here, we're going to remove all of them back to the dice supply, and we're going to choose one of 2 options. Either we're going to raise the motivation of any conspirator, doesn't matter which one, up by 1, or we're going to lower Hitler's military support by 1, which is super important, especially when we're talking about the attempt for a plot. The last option that we have is a number, and if we have a number, that is basically how many actions we will be able to take in this turn. So if we're going to roll 2 dice and we're going to have 2 and 1, basically we're going to have 3 actions that we can do in this turn. I remind you that Conspire we can take only once per turn, so it's not something that we'll be able to do in a loop. So now that we have covered that, let's roll the dice and see what's going on. And we have these 2 symbols. So the first thing that we need to do is to raise the suspicion of the blue conspirator up by 1. From medium, it's going to go to high. And with this die, basically what we can do is to take 3 actions. So let's take the first action, move it down to 2. And we're going to demonstrate another action that is called revealing an item. So right now, as you can see, we have an item over here, which is face down. We already know what it is. We're going to flip it to the other side, and we have over here weapons. And basically all the items that we'll be able to have on the map are going to contribute. Either we'll be able to do something with them in order to maybe lower the suspicion or raise the motivation. And also these items are crucial in order to have the attempt on Hitler's life. Let's move on to another action that I would like to show you, and that is to collect an item. So let's take down this action die, and we're going to take this item and we're going to put it right over here on our player board, just like this. Now, if you can see, we have revealed basically some text over here. So let's understand what it says. If any deputy is present, -2 suspicion, you only, and for any item. So basically now that we have this open, we can demonstrate another action that is called deliver an item. So again, the condition over here, if any one deputy is present, which is the case because we have Hess over here, we're going to lower our suspicion, but only for us. Some locations allow to distribute it between the different conspirators for any one item that we're going to discard. Okay, I think I would like to take that. So what we're going to do, we're going to discard the weapons item that we have. That is going to go out completely from the game. And for that, we're going to reduce the suspicion of our conspirator by 2. So that is 1 and 2, and that was basically the last action that the blue player has taken. Now we're going to move to the third thing that we have in our turn, and that is to draw a card from our event deck. Since we're over here with number 1, we're going to take the top card, and let's see what's going on over here. This card is called Assassin Caught. We have a little bit of flavor text that I'm going to skip for all the cards, but in general, guys, it's pretty interesting because the events here are kind of accurate. So just to enrich your knowledge in this era. Over here it says the conspirator or conspirators nearest to Hitler raise their suspicion to high. Move Hitler to the chancellery. So when we have an event, we're going to place it right over here where it says current event, and we're going to resolve it. So obviously the conspirator that is nearest to Hitler is the yellow player, right? Because they are situated both in Berlin. So we're going to raise the suspicion to high. So from medium, we're going to go over here. After that, we're going to move to, the Hitler token to the chancellery. So sorry about that. That is actually from a different take. Hitler is supposed to start over here. So now I'm just going to move him to the chancellery. With that, guys, we have finished the turn of the blue player, and we're going to move on to the yellow player. So now with the yellow player, we're going to do Conspire, which is probably the action that you're going to do most in this game. They're going to sacrifice 3 actions in order to take 3 dice, and let's see what's going to happen. And we have over here 2 and these 2 targets. So these 2 targets we're going to place right over here in the descent track, and now the yellow player can take 2 actions. I think what they would like to do is to move over here, and also as the second action to reveal this item, which is a signature. Now that we have finished the action phase, we're going to draw another card over here, and we have something that is called a key event. That key event is called Munich Agreement, and it says raise Hitler's military support by 1. Okay, no problem. So from 2, we're going to go up to 3. And then remove the next 2 stage 1 event cards from the game. Do not reveal these cards. So basically, this kind of effect is going to rush us a little bit. We're going to take out these 2 cards and put it back in the box. And right now, we're going to take this event, because this is the key event, and we have one of those in each deck, and we're going to place it over here where it says key event. I'm just going to cover it with your permission so it will be clear for the camera. Next, we're going to move again back to the blue player and pay attention that they are now starting their turn in the same location where Hess is situated. So the negative effect says discard a card. We don't have any cards in our dossier right now, so we're going to ignore this effect. The blue player is going to, again, conspire, so let's roll all the dice and see what's going to happen. And we have over here 3 and 3, which is kind of amazing because we'll be able to do 6 actions, but unfortunately, we do have this symbol right over here, and that means that we're going to raise the suspicion of the blue player up by 1. Okay, so now I would like to demonstrate for you another action that we have, and that is the dossier. So let's reduce one of the actions, and now we're going to draw the top cards that we have in the conspirator deck. This card is called Slow News Day, and let's break down the card, understand what it means. First of all, when you have a card with this symbol, it means that you'll be able to execute whatever we have over here without taking an action. Also, it says discard this card in order to not draw an event card this turn. Okay, so this is kind of nice. I don't think we would like to use it right now. Maybe we're going to save it for later turn. But right now we're going to place this card in our dossier. So what you need to know over here is that while our motivation is on timid, we will not be able to have more than 2 dossier cards in our possession. Okay, I would like to continue and draw one more card. So let's execute one more action to draw another card. And we have over here a card that is called Moment of Truth. Again, we have this symbol. We already understand what it means. And the effect says discard this card in order to add 2 dice to a plot you attempt. Now, this is a super important card and it's quite powerful. We're going to understand what it means a little bit later. Now, the thing is that these red cards are considered illegal cards. And that is, of course, just a game term. And basically, we're going to have some sort of a negative effect if later we're going to draw one of the event cards that is going to say Gestapo Raid. Now, we don't need to be too much afraid of it because we have 0 Gestapo Raids in the first deck. But the more we're going to move with the decks, the more cards we will have the chance to draw. Okay, let's move on to the next action that I would like to do, and that is to move. So let's remove this die and place the blue player right over here. Let's spend another action in order to reveal this item. And it has over here keys. Right now I see it doesn't give me too much. Let's spend another action in order to take the keys, you know, just because we never know what it can give us. So let's place it right over here. And I think that with the last action, I'm going to move one step further away. After that, we're going to draw the next card that we have, and we have this one right over here that says the Anschluss. And pay attention to the top part of the card that says, if this stage's key event is in play, which is the case as we remember right over here, ignore this card and draw another one. So let's take this card out of the game, and we're going to draw another card from this deck. This card that is called Parade in Berlin, move Hitler, Goebbels, and Hess to the Zoghaus. Okay, so let's take Hitler, Goebbels, and Hess over here into the Zoghaus, which is right over here. All Wehrmacht in Berlin lower their suspicion by 1. Okay, that's pretty interesting, but unfortunately, the blue player, which is the Wehrmacht, is not in Berlin, so nothing is going to be affected over here. Unfortunately, the yellow player is not Wehrmacht. They are actually Abwehr. I hope that I pronounce it correctly. That is, for each conspirator, we have some sort of a title that, as you can see, is taking effect sometimes. On top of that, while this is the current event. Ignore 2 eagle signs on all plot attempts. So right now it doesn't mean too much to us, and to be honest with you, we're very early in the game to try and have an attempt on Hitler's life, so we are going to ignore that, and we're going to move on. Moving on to the yellow player, they are, of course, as we thought, are going to conspire. Let's roll these 3 dice and see what's going on. And actually it's pretty great because this is something that I would like to show you. First of all, let's start with the easy thing. This one is going to raise the suspicion of the yellow player. Unfortunately, they are on extreme right now, and that is definitely something that we would like to pay attention to. The next thing that we have is this target symbol. We're going to place it over here, and since now we have 3 targets over here, we're going to remove all of them, and then we're going to either lower Hitler's military support down by 1, or we're going to actually raise the motivation of one of the conspirators by 1. I think that now it's going to be a little bit more important if we're going to raise over here the motivation, just because they already have 2 cards and the yellow player doesn't have it all. So right now we have unlocked the ability to have up to 6 cards. Of course, later if the motivation is going to drop down again to timid, we'll have to discard the amount of cards that we have down to 2. So now we have 3 actions over here. I would like to take the first one, and I think we're going to do the dossier action. So let's take the card over here. And we have the third type of card over here, that is a plot. Let's break down the card and understand what it means. This card is called ambush, and on the left side we have what are the required elements that we need to have. Absolutely, those are the basic things that we need to have in order to try and do attempting a plot. So the elements over here are that you are in the same space as Hitler. That means the conspirator is in the same space as Hitler's token. And Hitler is in any 3, 4, or 5 space. So Berlin is not good for us, only if Hitler is in 3, 4, or 5 space. That thing is going to allow us to have at least 1 die in our dice pool. On the right side, we can see optional elements, and those are things that are going to upgrade our dice pool, basically to have more dice over there and to have different effects. Over here, it says that if we're going to have the keys item, which is kind of awesome because we have it but with a blue player, we're going to add 1 more die to our pool. Then for every badge item that we have, we'll be able to lower the eagle signs that we will receive maybe from rolling the dice. We'll talk about it later. And if all the conspirators are in the same space, and again I remind you, as the same space as Hitler, we're going to receive on top of that 2 more dice to our pool. So that is kind of cool. Let's place it right over here, and we have 2 more actions. I think with 1 action what we're going to do is to take the signature and place it in our possession. And the last one, you know what guys, I think I'm going to take a dossier card. Let's see what it says. Oh, and we have here another plot card that we have taken. It's called Sniper. And we have here the required elements. You are in the same space as Hitler, and you are at reckless motivation. So that is kind of important to understand, because with some plots we'll need to be only at committed. Below committed we'll not be able to have an attempt, but we need to be at least on committed. Some of the plot cards that we have requires of us to be actually in the reckless, the most high position that we have with the motivation. Okay, so we have 2 cards in our dossier, and with that we're going to draw another event card. So let's see what it says over here, and we have visit from Himmler. Move Himmler to the space with the nearest conspirator. So let's see where Himmler is situated, and they're situated right over here. So that means that we're going to move their token right over here to this position. And if there is only 1 conspirator in that space, which is exactly the case, that conspirator may roll a die. On a roll of 1, 2, or 3, they raise their motivation by that amount. On a roll of the eagle sign, they raise their suspicion by 2. So you know what guys, I think that we are going to take that chance. Let's roll a die and see what's going on. And we have here a 3. To be honest, so far so good. So we're going to raise the motivation, which is more difficult to raise motivation than to take down suspicion, by 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, and 3 too committed. Okay, so at least we're in the basic condition to make an attempt. Of course, if we want to do this plot, we'll have to be in reckless. Okay, this event is going to go over here, and we're going to continue with the blue player. So I think that by now you kind of understood how the game is going to go, and it's just going to continue like this, taking turns, drawing an event, etc. Of course, at some point when we're going to draw the last card from the number 1 deck, we'll have to clear everything that we have over here, and then the next time we're going to draw a card from the next deck. I remind you that it's going to release for us more locations that we'll be able to visit, and I would like to talk about the few elements that we haven't talked about yet. So let's start with the first one, and that is the Gestapo Raid. So in our imaginary situation, right now one of the conspirators finished their turn, and we're going to draw one of these event cards, and we have here the Gestapo Raid. So let's read it together. Perform these following steps in order. First of all, conspirators at extreme suspicion are arrested. So that means that, as you can see right now, the yellow conspirator is at extreme suspicion. They are going to be arrested. When you are arrested, you're going to take your pawn and immediately place it into the prison that is situated right next to the location of the Gestapo HQ. When we do that, the conspirators that were arrested have to discard all of their illegal cards, all of the red cards. Fortunately, the yellow player didn't have at all any one of these illegal cards, so they don't need to discard anything. And again, I remind you, if you find yourselves in this situation where all the conspirators are in prison, we have lost the game. The second thing that we need to do is that for each illegal card in a conspirator's dossier, doesn't matter in which conspirators, that conspirator must choose to either discard it or keep it and raise their suspicion by 1. So right now the blue player has to make a decision if they're going to discard the illegal card that they have or to raise their suspicion by 1. I think that we're going to choose to raise their suspicion by 1. Just again, I told you that this card is kind of an important one. And the third phase is that we're going to return all dice in the descent track to the supply. So if this was the situation, for example, or even this, doesn't matter, we would have immediately take down the dice from here and put it back in our pool. After that, the Gestapo Raid is just another event, so we can place it over here, and we would have moved on. Now that we already have a conspirator in prison, let's talk about what the yellow player needs to do in their turn. So we can really, again, the design here is pretty cool because everything is written on the main board. So let's read it together. While in prison, you cannot resolve effects from cards in your dossier or conspirators sheet, including the lightning effects. That means some cards, like we've said before, that don't need an action to do. Now, as I've said before, conspirators have a special action that they will be able to take, or a special effect that depends on the conspirator that you have decided to play in this game. So now they're telling us that we cannot do that. Next, we cannot be the target, or we're going to be unaffected by card effects, including events and interrogation cards, unless the effect specifically states that we are being released. Then we're going to retain all of our items and non-illegal cards in your dossier, but you cannot discard, resolve, or transfer them. Okay, so it basically says that if we have any items or cards, we're just going to leave them as they are. And then when it's our turn, if it was the yellow player's turn, we'll need to skip basically everything that we have over here in the action, and we'll need to draw an interrogation card. So let's just draw one and understand what does it mean. Obviously, we're not going to go over all of them, but just to understand what's going on. So this card that is called Tell Us What You Know. Do not reveal or discuss this card with other players. So this has to be just between you and the game. Choose one of the following options, resolve the listed effects, then shuffle this card back to the interrogation deck. If all the effects of a given option cannot be applied, you must choose a different option. Attempting to resist interrogation, which is option C, is always an eligible option to choose. So again, we're going to have here some options. If we can do that option, then we can choose it. If we cannot, we cannot choose it. And we always have a option C that is available for us. So this is another kind of cool aspect to this game. The next action that we haven't seen is the transfer action, which is going to be kind of simple. Let's say that we have two conspirators in the same location. They will be able to pass between themselves cards or items. Of course, one item or one card per action. The next and last action that we haven't talked about is the release one. So let's put back the yellow player back into prison. Sorry, yellow player, it's not your fault, it's mine. And we're going to see what's going on. So right now, if the blue player as an action decides to do something that is called release, and pay attention that they cannot do that if their suspicion is at the extreme level, which is not our case right over here with the blue player, then we're going to resolve what we have over here. So let's read it together. Roll one die. If you roll an eagle, you are arrested as well. So if the blue player is now attempting to do this and they're going to have an eagle, they're going to be arrested as well. And right now, as you can imagine, we have lost the game. If we have any other result, doesn't matter which one, we're going to raise our suspicion by 1. In our case, it's going to be for extreme. And then we're going to release one conspirator from prison. Move that conspirator to the Gestapo HQ location, which is right over here. So if this was our case, the yellow player is simply going to move right over here. And on top of that, the player that just got released from prison is going to stay at the high suspicion. So sometimes you can understand that you might be arrested if you're on even medium or high suspicion level. Now let's move on to the last thing that we have in this game, and that is the attempt to execute a plot. So let me arrange a little bit the board just to make a good example, and we're going to take it from there. So right now the situation is that Hitler is situated in Treblinka alongside with the two conspirators. We already drawing cards from the fourth deck that we have over here, so it's completely legal. This is the blue player's turn right now, and let's say that in a previous round or something like that, they had both of the conspirators some sort of a transfer. So the yellow player gave the blue player the ambush plot card that we have right over here, and let's see how it goes. So when you're going to make an attempt, which is an action, so let's say that is the action that the blue player decides to do, we need to start in resolving what we have over here on the right side. I know that you cannot see everything, so we're going to go over it one by one. First of all, we need to confirm that we have all the required elements for the attempt. As you remember with the ambush, the required elements are that Hitler is either in a 3, 4, or 5 space, which is the condition. And also we are at the same location as Hitler, so the blue player is over here. So far, so good. And just for that, we're going to already have one die in our pool. Let's place it right over here. Then we're going to add some dice from the optional elements. So let's see what we're going to have. The first one is that if we have keys, we're going to have one more die, which is the case right over here because we do have keys. Let's add one more die. Then let's ignore this one just for a second and go to the last one. And it says that if all conspirators are in the same location, which is the case, we're going to add 2 more dice. Let's place it over here. And on top of that, I hope that you still remember this illegal card that we have. We're going to discard it without taking out an action, and we're going to add 2 more dice into our pool. 6 dice, not so bad. And of course, this card right over here, we need to discard. So now that we understand how many dice we have in our pool, let's roll all of them and see what is the result. Okay, so this is what we have, which is actually kind of perfect for our example. So the first thing that we need to check if the plot fails and is detected. So now we need to check how many of these eagle symbols we have and see if it meets or exceeds what we have over here in our suspicion level. So basically, because we have one eagle over here and one eagle over here, then that means that we have met the same number. And what we need to do is to ignore everything that we have over here and also discard the attempted plot card. That means that we're going to take this card and we're going to discard it. And after that, we're going to move Hitler to the chancellery, which is right over here. And all the conspirators lower their motivation by 1 And on top of that, the conspirator that tried to do that is being arrested. That means that we're going to take the pawn and put it in prison. Now, here's the thing. On this plot card, we remember that we have this symbol that we have kind of ignored before. And it says that for each badge that we have in our possession, we can ignore one eagle sign. Since the blue player does have a badge token, they can ignore this thing, and so far it looks promising. Then we need to check how many of these target symbols we have. If we have the number of targets that is lower than the amount of military support Hitler has, so let's say if we would have rolled only 2, then this attempt has been failed, but nothing really happens, there is no penalty, we can continue our turn as normal. If we have the same number of targets as Hitler's military support or more, then the attempt was a success and we managed to assassinate Hitler. Every number that you're going to roll is simply going to be ignored. If this is the situation, then congratulations, you can take this card that is called We Killed Hitler. On the other side, we have a little bit more flavor text. And with that, guys, we have basically covered everything that we have in Black Orchestra, or at least I hope. I hope that this video helped you understand how to table Black Orchestra and how the game goes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.